Hello, how you doing? Thanks for looking in on my video. So today's case involves a young woman, 20-year-old woman, and I thought I'd talk a bit about the difference between male and female offending. Huge difference, and it's quite interesting really to think why is there a big difference, and is there a difference in the way that women are socialised and the way that they grow up, and you know, why is it that men commit so many more offences than women do, and could the way that women grow up be a solution towards, could it be a learning point for the men, and, if men kind of grew up a bit more like women do, would that help reduce crime? It's hard to express, isn't it, all this, but so there's a huge difference. So, for example, in our prisons, only 4% of our total prison population are women offenders. And there's a striking difference as well. In prison, there's very high numbers of women commit self-harming. There's a lot of self-harming in prison, and it's very often quite repetitive as well. So the self-harm in the prisons by men tends to be one-off incidents, whereas often, the incidence with the women is 3 or 4 times as high as with the men. So 341 per 1,000 prisoners, female prisoners self-harm. So these are statistics that come from the government. And it's about, the self-harming rate is a lot higher than the men in the male prisons. When we look at the global figures of crime in the UK, about 20% of all crime are committed by females, so that's 80% of the crimes. And of course, men commit more violent crimes than women do. The females' offences committed by females tend to be acquisitive crimes, to do with money, to do with drug problems, emotional problems, mental health issues. And dare I say, in my experience, quite a lot of the time, there's a male behind the crime in one way or another. I recall in my early days of probation in the 1980s and 90s, there were quite a lot of credit card frauds, and these were often quite organised offences, where a man would go into a shopping centre and he had 5 or 6 women going in and committing the credit card, buying goods with these stolen credit cards and signatures changed on them, and they would go and buy these electrical goods with these dodgy credit cards, and then take them meet back in the car park, and the man would take all the goods off them, and they were in his pay, but these women were taking all the risks. And my experience as well, many women offenders have been victims of crime themselves, and very often victims of crimes committed upon them by men. So it's quite sad. Now, when we look at the offence of no TV licence in the UK, 74% of all the no TV licence offences are committed by women. 27% of all offences committed by women are theft from shop. So it tends to be acquisitive crimes. So today's case, just to bear in mind that I've changed some of the details. It dates from the 1990s, and it's a 20-year-old woman who was a trainee sales manager in, I've changed the name of the shop, but I'm going to say it's Argos. And she was a trainee sales manager in Argos, and she committed theft from employer. So what she was doing was writing out false customer refund slips, and she stole £240. So it's quite a serious offence in that it's fairly sophisticated, really, what she done. It's kind of fraudulent, really, premeditated, and it's quite a serious breach of trust. So what were her motives? Well, she was in a bit of a financial state, really. She said she owed quite a lot of money. She breached her credit card limit she'd reached her limit on her credit cards. She owed money to her brother. And she kind of thought, well, I'm going to borrow money out of this company and I'll pay it back. The other factor, which I think is quite interesting, was she was quite unhappy in her job. And I think it's a contributory factor. She felt that she'd only been in the job for 4 months. She'd had little or no training. She felt that they were making fun of her. They were scapegoating her, that they kind of sort of bullied her at work a bit. And she got herself into debt, inappropriately bought expensive present for her boyfriend. And I'm a bit worried actually as well, thinking back that, was she coerced by a boyfriend as well, you know, because you'll learn more about this as we go along. But I think she was quite naive and quite a very low self-esteem as well. Interestingly though, she was much happier in her previous job. So she'd been in the job for 4 months. She'd been in a pet supermarket before and was really happy there, and wouldn't have dreamt of committing that offence against them. But she saw this discrepancy was occurring, and I kind of wonder if somebody else had been at it as well. But she noticed discrepancies in the refunds, and she noticed that they weren't being picked up upon by her managers. So she thought, right. But she acknowledges that she'd done something really, really bad. And, you know, I kind of quoted her. I made note here of what she said. She felt really ashamed. I'm so sorry, I know I've done something really bad and wrong. She said, I'll be so stupid. I will never do anything like this again because I feel so terribly ashamed. When she was arrested, she was put in the cells, you know, for quite some time, about 6 hours, I think. Police interviewed her. Rather than do a no-comment interview, she made a full and frank admission of her offence. And she recognises now that she should have taken alternative action. She should have, you know, thought about the situation and, you know, managed her money better and perhaps asked to borrow money from somebody else, or, you know, managed her finances rather than steal, because she really, really recognises she'd done wrong. So the offence was committed on the 11th of September, and she attended a disciplinary interview on the 17th of September. And the outcome of the disciplinary interview was she was summarily dismissed, and she felt awful and wretched. I mean, at least she turned up. Some people wouldn't even bother turning up, would they? But she turned up for the disciplinary interview and was sacked. What I find interesting is that the store stopped paying her, and she hasn't got any pay from the 1st of September up until the 17th of September, the day she was dismissed. And she committed the offence on the 11th. And I'm not sure if companies can or can't do this, but maybe they thought, well, why should we pay you when you stole this money off us? Breach of contract, maybe, I don't know. But that sounds a bit off to me, but, you know, do write in if you know the answers to this sort of thing. Now, what really gobsmacked me was she rather immaturely brought a really expensive present for her boyfriend. It came out, and it cost her a lot of money, and I think really she was really foolish, and I kind of worry, did her boyfriend coerce her into buying this? And it seemed a bit of a foolish and immature relationship, perhaps, in that he used to be the manager at PetSmart, at the pet supermarket where she was working before. And it kind of came out, I kind of discussed her history and everything. I'll come back to all of that in a minute, but let's talk about her. She had kind of a happy, fairly normal childhood, although she said that there were problems at home. She was the youngest of 4 children, but she kind of felt sheltered from the problems, and that she was kept out of discussions and what was going on. And she felt that this kind of stance kind of left her feeling left out, and that she was treated as perhaps somebody who was a bit stupid. At school, she had experienced bullying. At secondary school, between the ages of about 11 and 12, and her mum had to go in and address the situation. So that's quite sad. She did sort of average attainment at school. She took 9 GCSEs, and out of that she got 5 Cs, 3 Ds and 1 E. She left school at 16. She went to the pet supermarket, and she did quite well there actually. She started off as cashier, worked her way up to supervisor, then she worked in the office as an office administrator. She formed a relationship with her boyfriend, who was deputy manager at the supermarket. Relationships are frowned upon, and for that reason she went and got a job with Argos. Now the worrying thing is this deputy manager, the chap that she had a relationship, is still married, and was allegedly supposed to be extricating himself from his relationship with his wife. Really? So, according to her, this is supposed to be happening. But I kind of wonder, had he duped her? You know. Now, the other thing was that he apparently was top sportsman at a really good air rifle shooting, and he came second in a national competition, and she decided to buy him as a present an air rifle which cost £1,300, which seems an awful lot of money for a young woman who's not earning a lot of money. And she paid £800, and she's paying the remainder off on a monthly basis, an awful lot of money. And I kind of wonder, how could he allow himself to accept such a present like that, that's such a lot of money? And why isn't he contributing towards it as well? You know, what kind of relationship is this that is going on here? Worries me. So, in discussing her risk to the public, I think it's low. She's not one that needs to be sent to prison so that we're protected from her. She seems to have been a bit silly and stupid, perhaps. I'm quite worried about the way she works through issues and problems. And I think she would benefit from some advice, you know, adult advice from being overseen by somebody on probation. So I propose that she be put on a probation order with a cognitive behavioural program that was called Think First at the time. So it was about thinking before you offend and thinking through problems, and it's a good program, suitable to do some community service as well if the court desire. But really I feel that it's a one-off offence. I think it's very unlikely she'll ever re-offend. She has no previous convictions. She's been quite silly, really, in splashing out and buying that air rifle for a boyfriend who's married. I mean, and she's already sacrificed herself by moving the job. And interestingly, she's moved to another job where she's not happy and she's really happy before. It's all a bit sad, really. So I think she needs her future behaviour. She benefit from supervision, and she needs to get advice now on helping, you know, careers advice, employment advice, help getting another job. And she said she'd appreciate that and help and appreciate help in sorting herself out. So that's it. So proposing probation. I hope you found it interesting, and do write in with your comments. But theft from an employer is quite a serious offence. I think though, you know, I think it's interesting actually, because I actually think that if employees are unhappy, they're less motivated, you know, and less likely to behave well in the workplace, you know. And if you've got a really good team at work and a good team ethos and everybody's happy at work, they're less likely to commit offences. And in my experience, where there's a sort of lax systems, for example, I came across a company where from all the way up the top to the bottom, they all seem to be stealing from the company. If they're, you know, and the managers appear to be helping themselves and everybody else seem to help themselves. And how the management behave at the top can influence the whole setup of the company. And I'm really quite passionate that, you know, we need to have positive relationships at work and mutual respect. And I think this, having a really good atmosphere at work, can help, and respectful atmosphere. But she said that she wasn't well trained, she'd been bullied at work and all that, you know, made fun of. And I can believe that that was a bit of a contributory factor to offence, but it's not an excuse. You know, there isn't really any excuse for offending, but it's a contributory factor. Anyway, all the very best, and do write in with your comments, and I hope you're enjoying these videos, and see you again soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.